This episode of the Dorking Out Show podcast is brought to you by the Martha Wayne Foundation, a patron of the arts in Gotham City since 1979.
And the letter T, because you can't spell toothbrush without T. And to the people who give out toothbrushes on Halloween, everyone hates you. Everyone.
Houston, flight is go.
Mila, let's go. STM. Safety contact.
From Assignment X, Amalgamated Storytelling, and thesoniashow.com, it's The Dorking Out Show with Christopher Allen Smith and Sonia Mansfield. Welcome to episode 18 of Dorking Out, a podcast for people who like to dork out about stories and the stories and culture that they love. That means movies and TV, books and podcasts, and pretty much everywhere and everything else where you find stories that interest you. This is the Ain't Got Time for the Walking Dead edition. Today, with me, is my co-host, professional writer, and author of The Sonia Show, more on that later, Sonia Mansfield.
Hey there.
Hello.
With me today is my co-host, Emmy Award-winning filmmaker and nerd author, more on that later, Christopher Allen Smith. In this week's episode, we talk about The Walking Dead. We're not watching it, but everyone else is, so we're going to talk about it with Peter Brown, associate editor of Assignment X, and then use it as a jumping off point to talk about what it's like to not be watching a show that everyone else loves. In our second segment, I Should Be Working on It Right Now, we chat about the books we should be writing, and Peter Brown comes back for our third segment, a roundtable discussion about some of the new trailers that came out last week, including Guardians of the Galaxy 2, The Arrival, and more. All of that, plus our favorite headlines of the week. This segment of Dorking Out is brought to you by Outrage. Is Hollywood remaking a movie that you loved as a kid, but you don't want them to? Then you need Outrage. And
Burns Industries. Nuclear power you can fear.
Topic 1. The Walking Dead returned on Sunday night for its 7th season premiere. Everyone is talking about it, but we don't watch the show. But we're not going to let a little thing like the fact that we don't watch a show keep us from talking about it. Peter Brown, managing editor of Assignment X, watches it, and he's here to talk about it with us. We're going to be talking about spoilers, so if you haven't watched Sunday night's episode, then you might want to skip this segment and move right on to topic 2. Thank you for joining us, Peter.
Hi.
Hi.
Buddy.
I know you have a lot of thoughts and feelings about what happened on The Walking Dead, so I will just move aside and let you go.
Okay, well, so this is really interesting given the fact that both of you do not watch the show. So
here's the thing. I know what happened because I still read sites where they talk about it. So okay. I tend to read the recaps and stuff, but I don't actually watch the show.
Actually, okay. I want to make a guess before we do this because I haven't checked anything. Let me guess that the Walking Dead fans are really happy today. Am I right? They're super happy with whatever happened last night, right?
I would say it's probably a mixture, actually, to be honest.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was expecting them to be mad. They seem to be mad about everything these days, so. All right.
Well, it depends upon kind of how you look at things, I guess, in terms of how the show progresses and where it's going to maybe go from here, I guess. Right. And that kind of basically is kind of it's this mixture of emotions because obviously spoilers, they killed not one but two major characters in the opening episode.
Yeah, and one of those characters is someone who's been on it since the very first episode.
Right, one of the few surviving people who have been on since the very first season.
So who is that? We said we were doing spoilers. So who'd they whack?
So Glenn is the pizza boy delivery guy turned kind of scout zombie hunter extreme guy. So very beloved character. He's married to another character on the show who's also very loved. She is pregnant with his child.
That's so
sad. There's a lot of things going on there. Yeah. And so killing him off was a big deal. And they did the same thing in the comics, and it was a big deal in the comics. And there's a lot of parallels to what happened in the show last night and what happened in the comics. And like, as much as they like to talk about how things are different from the two, if you really kind of look at it and you've examined the big moments that have happened on the show, they're almost nearly identical. Like, almost nearly identical. Yeah, some characters have been kind of switched up, and maybe some people got put in different situations, but the plot lines are the same. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So yeah, but in this case, it's exactly how it went down. So at the end of the 6th season, well, let's start here. At the end of the 6th season, in the finale episode, they introduced this character named Negan, who is this really bad guy. He's like the kind of the baddest of the bad guys that they've had in the comic books and in the show. Up until now, it was, I guess, probably the governor who was the bad guy. But this guy makes the governor look like Oompa Loompa, basically. He's that much worse.
Yeah.
I understand the metaphor.
Right. So Oompa Loompas are, kind of cute, I guess. Maybe that's kind of where I was going.
No, I got it.
Anyway, the problem was that at the end of the season 6, he was going to kill off one of the characters, and they left it hanging in this big cliffhanger. All you said was him swinging the bat, and from a first-person perspective, somebody was draining blood profusely. And so they left it 6 months until the next season, which was this opening episode, right? Pissed off everyone, probably. With some exceptions, probably. But
so why were they mad? Because they just don't want a cliffhanger?
Yeah, well, no.
All these shows do cliffhangers.
The problem is that they had built this up so much. They had introduced this guy. They had talked about him the whole season. Everything was leading up to this point, and people were expecting something bad to happen because everybody was talking about the fact that something bad happens because it happened in the comics, and the comics parallel the TV show. So they were all expecting something bad to happen, and then it didn't happen. And then they were like, it did happen, but they didn't show it. And so it was like a big tease, really. And so everybody was upset. Critics were upset. Fans were upset. People were talking about not watching the show anymore.
Way ahead of you.
Blaming the creators, making just like insane comments, right?
Yeah. Well, it sucks when a show kind of makes a promise to its people, to its fans, that it's going to deliver a certain thing, and then it changes the rules or doesn't do those things. That's why I bailed on The Killing. Do you remember The Killing?
Yeah.
That's why a lot of people
it had these rules, and then it like broke its own rules, and I was like, I'm out.
That's why a lot of people, speaking of The Killing, that's why a lot of people bailed on the first season of Twin Peaks. That's a deep cut for you people.
Yeah, that is true, though. You're right. So fast forward to 6 months now, and so this entire time everybody's been speculating, who did Negan kill? Why are they dragging it out so long? This and so we get to this point, and we have these brutal killings in this episode. Like, brutal. They don't pull back anything. They're showing this guy wailing away with a barbed wire lace bat on these two people who get killed. And people are up in arms about not the fact necessarily that the people were killed who were killed, but the brutality of it. Like, they went over the edge. This has gone too far. Oh, it's all torture porn now. It's crap. That's crap.
A lot of these critics...
The show is kind of already those things.
Yeah, wait a minute. Hold on.
Well, see,
is this the first episode these critics have seen?
So you jumped the gun on what I'm going to say.
I'm sorry.
So this is basically, it's okay. So this is what got me fired up. I've been reading about this stuff all day. So basically, these guys are coming out writing these huge long articles about how it's jumped the shark, and they're not sticking to what they've already done, and they're teasing the fans, and they're making a mockery of the show, and it's now just become this big torture porn fest, and there's no redeeming qualities or whatever. And I'm like, I guarantee that half of the people who are writing these articles have not watched the show, have watched or barely watched the show and have jumped on the bandwagon because they knew that this was going to be a big deal. They knew it was going to get a lot of people talking. They knew that Twitter was going to be talking about it. Social media was going to be talking about it. And they knew that something bad was going to happen because people have been talking it up for the last month and coming up to it. And they were like, I'm going to watch it, and then I'm going to go in, and then I'm going to talk about how brutal this show is, and I'm going to lambaste it for how brutal it is, including the two of you.
Not me.
No, he's got it, Sonia. It's noted. Let's go on.
Now, I preface that, but there are some critics and people who review the show that also did that have been doing that basically for last couple seasons. They've been calling it that the show's basically lost its way and all this stuff. And I'm not talking about those guys. I'm talking about the ones who just kind of come out of the woodwork and now are just jumping on it. And I could point to 20 spots in the show through the first 6 seasons where there was something equally as bad as what happened in this episode. Like people getting their face ripped off, people getting eaten alive, people getting their innards ripped out, shot and killed and blown up, and pieces going everywhere. And
they fed a guy,
baby.
They ate a guy's leg.
Yeah, a baby getting cut out of a mother, and then a zombie eating the mother.
Sorry.
And now it's torture porn? Just all of a sudden it's torture porn? No, it's been that way since the beginning.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing that I get. There's kind of a similar. It's interesting you put that. It's kind of a similar way of criticizing Game of Thrones. It's like, oh, Game of Thrones is so hateful to women, and they're just, they have this rape of Cersei by her brother or whatever, and it's just so awful, and why do they have to do that? Meanwhile, in the same season, Theon got castrated.
Right.
And there were not big think pieces about a guy getting a certain part of his body cut off. But, a brother and a sister go at it a little rough, and now everybody's up in arms.
Oh, and the one guy got eaten alive by his own dogs.
That's right.
Like ripped apart, and they showed it. And
That's right.
You don't see big think pieces about this.
That's right. So
you say it was justice.
Exactly.
Well, I'll say I think The Walking Dead has always been kind of gross and torture porn.
It has been.
And cruel.
I would say that the first season, kind of like Game of Thrones, a lot of the horror had a specific storytelling and thematic purpose.
Yeah.
And after Frank Darabont left, I'm the worst kind of hipster when it comes to this show, because it's like, I liked it in the first season, but then once everybody jumped on and went nuts, then the show sucks. Unfortunately for the advocates of Walking Dead, I'm correct, because after the first season, it sucked. However, Peter, who else did they kill last night?
Okay, so we'll get into dealt with that. That's fine. Let's get into the meat of the episode. So basically, it reopens right where the finale left off, and they show the same people all kind of on the ground, and the guy's about ready to kill them, and then they do a little bit of flashbacks and flash forward kind of stuff, and Negan takes Rick, who's the main character, on this ride, and he's trying to teach him that he's the big guy in charge now, and Rick's not going to be the one in charge, and then they flash back, and then the first person they kill is Abraham, and Abraham's this guy who came on in season 4, and he's this big burly guy, says a lot of good one-liners, very comical kind of character as well, and in that way.
So the one person who lightens the mood at all on the show.
In a way, yes, in a way. And so they kill him off, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, that was it. It was Abraham. And, people kind of speculated it was probably going to be either Abraham or Glenn, maybe possibly Maggie, who's Glenn's wife, pregnant wife. They said that might be brutal and all this stuff. So, but anyway, so they kill him off, and people are thinking at this point, oh, that's who they killed. Okay. But something happens, and then he kills Glenn, who's even more beloved than Abraham, and he bashes him in the skull, and his eye pops out basically, and he's still alive. And they're showing him his face is brutally caved in and his eyes popped out and he's bleeding and he's trying to mumble words and talk to his wife and all this stuff. And it's a really, really brutal scene. And then, he ends up killing him and smashing his head in. However, it's exactly the same way the comics did. The comics exactly did that. His head was bursted open, his eye popped out. It was almost scene for scene from where if you put the comic next to the TV show, it was like exactly. And so in that way, it was like an homage to Glenn, because issue 100 was when he died in the comics, and it was this really big moment in the comics because Glenn had been around for so long and it was this important character. And in this respect, he gets that kind of death that I guess you deserve. And Glenn was teased to die earlier in season 6. There was this whole dumpster tease, and everybody got all up ours about that. Oh, you're going to kill him off early. And then he was teased again dying. And so some people are complaining that, oh, you teased Glenn dying and then you killed him off anyway. I don't really care so much about that. I'm glad he got the death that kind of he deserved, which was mimics what happened in the comics, kind of showing my nerddom there. But so those two guys die. The way they did the season 6 finale and the way they did, they had to go hard in this episode and so gruesome because they had to kind of make up for what they did in the cliffhanger. And I don't know if this is what they originally planned or because they made such a bad decision, they just redid it. Because otherwise it was going to be kind of a throwaway, I think. And I don't agree with kind of how they did the cliffhanger and then they did this, but it makes sense in terms of this episode. And I thought this episode was really good, actually. And I think what they should have done actually is they should have probably killed Abraham off in the cliffhanger, and then left it as, oh, that's who they killed. And then the big shock would be opening this episode with him killing off Glenn as well. I think that would have had much, much bigger impact in terms of what it did. But they screwed it up and they didn't do it that way.
Well, it's interesting that you say that they have to, because of the cliffhanger, they have to make it up by going hard in this episode. And it's like, is that why people watch the show? Because they want the awful violence and the gross stuff.
I think so. I think some people do, for sure. I mean, some people like the characters and the interactions with that and the little survival aspect. But I think a lot of people are also in it for that and the gore and the violence and whatever.
See, I just thought it just got too gross, too gory, too cruel. I just couldn't.
Right, and that goes back to my point that it was already there.
Yeah.
Before.
No, it was always there. It's just I kind of like what Smith was saying. I think at the beginning of the show, it had this idea of what makes us human, what separates us from the zombies, the idea of where does your humanity go when there's no rules anymore. And, there a lot of the stuff on the farm was really slow and boring, but a lot of talking,
and boring and slow.
Yes. And it just spiraled into it turned into everyone is awful. Everything is awful. Everyone's bad.
Right. But here's the thing too.
Season after season, the group just comes across another group, and that group is evil, and they killed that group, and so on and so on and so on.
Right.
And it's so interesting because I was thinking about The Walking Dead and how it's kind of like Westworld.
Uh-huh.
Westworld is kind of also exploring these ideas, and I mean, it's only 4 episodes in, but I just feel like it's doing it in a more thoughtful way.
Yeah.
In a way that's less gross.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And, that's one of the things I was thinking about. I was thinking about, for some reason, I can't remember why I went off on this thought experiment, but you can tell any kind of story. I was thinking mainly about humor. Is you can tell any kind of joke, but there are certain jokes where you better stick the landing. Otherwise, people are going to be groaning or calling for your head or whatever. And I think that's the thing for me is that Walking Dead was really gross in the first season, but it was also really good. Mm-hmm. And as the seasons went on for various things, it was not good enough to overcome how depressing and gross it became.
Yeah, exactly.
If the
At least not for me.
Exactly. If the writing was still really up there, if the characters were still really up there, if the level of surprise was still really up there, I'd still be watching. But it just became monotonous and just boring. It was kind
But
of
it's
like
more interested in being like shocking and gross than being thoughtful.
right. You know, I kind of wonder, you know, because we have a lot of these prestige shows out there, and one of the things that's great about them is the writing is really varied from episode to episode. You know, one of the things that I think separates cable shows from network shows is you never know what the new episode's going to be about. Like any episode of Mad Men, they could be paying attention to a copy girl, or they could be paying attention to Don Draper, or they could be paying attention to Peter. They could, you know, you never knew when it went up from black in the first shot where an episode was going. For me, The Walking Dead, it kind of has a lot to do with like boring network shows like Timeless or whatever, where you can see the format from a mile away. You can see the beats that they're hitting from a mile away. You can see the cliches coming from a mile away. The only thing different is this has all the kind of standards and practices taken off, and they can go as gross and as mean as they want. But fundamentally, the show is a boring network television drama.
Well, I agree with some of what you just said. I disagree with probably much of it, though. So,
Really?
That's fine.
Yeah, well, he still likes it.
Well, yeah,
I
actually,
do. I
why
do like
yeah,
the show.
why do you
know
still
what?
like it?
Even after the season 6 finale, I remember we did a podcast. It was either the Pop Show or here, where we talked about, you know, I talked about how much I disliked it, and I thought it was terrible the way that they handled this cliffhanger, and it really made me angry because of what I already have talked about. But then I think somebody asked me, am I going to give up on the show? And I was like, no, you know, straight out no. I'm not one of these people who are going to be like, oh, I'm done. I'm done with the show or whatever. Just because I still enjoy it for what it is. It's pretty much mindless entertainment, and in that regards, I do agree with you. And it's very, very violent, which I enjoy as well. Which is something I think other people do. I think that's part of the draw for sure. So yeah, you know, and I do like the characters. I do like the interaction between the characters, and to see just how well they get on. You know, are they going to continue to survive, or are they not? Even though I kind of know much of what's happening because I've read the comics. But
Of course, they're not going to survive.
So,
It's never. The question for me is never who is going to die. It's when are they going to die? They're going to die.
Well, that's true. So I would just getting back to the episode, I'll just say one last thing, and then maybe also one last. But so I think that getting back to how they had to do this, I think that they because they waited the 6 months, I think that if they would have come back with an episode that wasn't as violent, that wasn't as devastating in terms of killing off these characters, people would have lost their S, and they would have said, we've waited this long and you've killed this minor character, or you've not done this or whatever. So I think they kind of they put themselves in a no-win situation in a little bit. So if they go soft, people complain, but if they go very hard, now people are also complaining.
right.
But I'll guarantee this, that there are far less people saying that they are done with the show now after this episode than they were at the end of season 6.
Interesting. All right. Well, let's use that as a segue to jump on to talk about shows that we are not on, mindless entertainment. You know, because I think that's the thing, is one of the reasons I'm not watching this is because there's just so much stuff out there. And I almost have like, you know, they've called it like TiVo anxiety or something, where there's so much good content out there to watch that it's, you know, you feel like you have to be watching something else, or I feel like unless something is firing on all cylinders all of the time, I don't have time for it. Sonia.
Yes.
What are some of the shows that you are not watching that everyone else is watching?
So I am not watching Veep.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Keep going.
Neither am I.
I am not watching The Americans.
Neither am I.
Me too.
I am not watching House of Cards.
Neither am I.
That one you can. Yeah. Okay. Keep going. Yeah.
And I'm not watching Mr. Robot.
That's right. All right.
I disagree with that one.
It's
Yes,
almost-
I am watching it.
Those are the 4 I wrote down is shows that I have a lot of people like in my Facebook feed or friends, people who are watching those shows and they talk about them. And I'm like, I'm not even part of the conversation because I don't even watch them.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing that I was thinking about is I'm not part of the conversation because, yeah, The Americans is up on at the top of my list of shows I know I need to watch, and I'm actually really interested in. I still haven't seen Justified, and that whole show's come and gone.
I love Justified.
I'm sure you do. I loved season 1 of Fargo, but I haven't had time for season 2, and it's just driving me crazy.
Season 2's so good.
That's the thing. People say season 2 is better than season 1, and season 1 was one of my favorite television viewing experiences of all time.
Now, does that mean you don't want to see it, or you just
I
haven't
do.
got around to watching it?
I do. A part of it is I haven't gotten around to see it, and the other part is I'm kind of getting to the point where I don't have time to dedicate the attention that I want to. When I sit down, I want to be focused on Fargo or Mr. Robot or there's a show on Showtime, Billions, that I hear a lot of good stuff about. It's really interesting. I listened to a podcast by one of the creators, and he's a super interesting guy. So, yeah, what do you think we lose by not joining in, or is that another symptom of there's too much good stuff going around? We just don't get, you pick the shows you want to watch, and you get to have your little water cooler conversations for people that pick the same shows. But, there's going to be a whole lot more drifting by in the river that you're just not going to have time to jump in on.
I just don't have time.
Yeah.
I can't. What's on your list, Peter?
Well, Orphan Black.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I think I watched the first season. Yeah, I watched the first season, and I couldn't get into it, I guess. And I hear people talking about that all the time, and I'm just like, just not interested. Homeland. Also, I don't have any interest. I guess I've seen 24, so I don't need to see this now.
Yeah.
I think I watched the first season, maybe in some of the second season, and then bailed on that one.
Right. I think I'm with you, and I think that's interesting because Homeland was one of those shows that the first season, Showtime has this weird habit. I think I might have talked about before, where their first seasons of a lot of their shows are fantastic.
Yeah, the first season was really entertaining.
Exactly, and the second
Shameless
season
was also really good. The first season.
Second seasons just go off the rails. Homeland for me became nearly unwatchable in the second season, if I remember correctly. Might have been the third season, but it was and then now supposedly it's kind of clawed its way back. But if you have a season that kind of meanders off, or a season that greatly missteps and just goes right into the ground, for me that's it. You don't, the days of, oh well, let's just muddle through this season and then it gets better.
Exactly.
You got to be good the whole time, and I'm sorry. I know that's a lot of pressure, and as somebody that's trying to do something creatively, I am walking very far out on a limb that I'm probably about to start sawing off here in a second. But
no,
yeah.
You're right though. You're right. I mean, if you're not bringing it every season, there's something that is, and I'm moving on.
Yeah, exactly. So,
is there anything else on your list, Peter?
Yeah, I have Transparent, which is that Amazon show.
Oh yeah,
I hear people talking about it all the time, and I just no, I have no interest.
I haven't watched it yet.
I
could have put that one on my list, actually.
Yeah, actually, you know what? I could have put that one on my list too, and it's funny because everybody loves it and they talk about it, and people that I really trust talk a lot about it and how much they love it.
Yeah,
I just have no interest.
Yeah, exactly. It does nothing for me. I look at the previews and everything. I'm just like, no.
And that's the thing. Especially with a show like Transparent, when you say you don't watch it or you say you're not interested, people kind of expect you to get on a soapbox and, I don't know, give some conservative rant or something. It's like, no. My heart's with it. I attaboy, but it's just
exactly.
nothing.
I wish it all the best.
Yeah. So I don't know, but so I guess that's what we have to do. We have to come to terms with the fact that we're not going to watch all the shows, and we're not going to have all the conversations.
Yeah, and I think what you said is true too. Is this it's a matter of time in a lot of ways too. Is I don't have time to watch everything. Just don't have it. I got to pick and choose my battles. And
Right.
Transparent's something that I'm not interested in, so it's not the one I'm going to pursue. So.
Right.
Well, I don't let a little thing like me not watching the show stop me from talking about it.
That's right. Thank you. As our newest correspondent, our Walking Dead correspondent, thank you for being on this segment of
I think then you should just give your review of The Walking Dead without watching it, like every week. You're just like, here on The Walking Dead, this is what happened.
Something gross
Gotta
happened
make it
and
up.
everyone's upset.
That's
The end.
That's
Somebody
what we
got their
should
face
do.
eaten. Somebody cried. Some boring things happened. The end.
You know what? That's a fantastic. Because you have those people that review Star Wars having never seen it, or try to tell you what Star Wars is about, having picked up just the clues in culture. Have you seen these videos on YouTube?
Yes.
Yeah.
We should definitely do something like that. Where we review The Walking Dead, and
That's a new segment
all right, so
where we start reviewing shows we don't watch.
that's right. All right, put a pin in that. Peter, I want you to sit down and wait for a while Sonia and I talk about something else.
Aww.
You'll sit there and you'll like it, mister. This segment of the Dorking Out Show is brought to you by Curiosity. Is something absolutely none of your business, but you want to make it your business? Like, who's that woman Ted's talking to? It's sure not his wife. Then you need Curiosity. So that brings us to a new segment of the show, topic 2. I should be doing it right now. And for me, this is kind of a segment that I've been thinking about since we first started the show, and kind of the premise of the show is focused around this a little bit. In that, Sonia and I, are very interested in stories. We're very interested in why stories touch us, why we're excited by them, what we like about them, what we don't like about them. And for me, it's all for the purpose of trying to be a storyteller, trying to actually do this stuff. It's one side of storytelling is just consuming it and listening to stories, but another equally important part of it is telling the stories. And I know that Sonia and I, in various ways over the years, have kind of been successful at telling stories and, telling stories, and we're looking to kind of get more into that. So in this segment, we're going to be talking about the projects and stories that we are actually working on, and then periodically throughout the year or two or whatever, we will be touching back on where we are, making announcements, etc., etc. So that is what this segment's about. That's a long and rambling way for me to
say that we called the segment, I should be working on it right now.
That's right. I should be working on it right now, but I'm not, because I'm asking Sonia Mansfield, what is the thing that you should be working on right now?
I actually have 2 things I should be working on right now that I have been writing my blog, thesoniashow.com, since 2003. I've been writing a couple times a week for 13 years. And in the middle, somewhere in all of those blog posts are really good, I think good stories and funny essays that I would like to compile into a book format. What's funny is why am I not working on it? I don't know. It's really just a matter of going through everything and compiling and editing and updating and tweaking, and I don't know why I'm not working on it right now.
I might have a theory for you.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to Script Notes with John August and Craig Mazin. It is a fantastic podcast about screenwriting. And Craig Mazin talked about procrastination and why we procrastinate. And it's mainly because we're afraid, and it seems strange for people who's, I'm a writer, I'm this and I'm that, and when it comes time to take an idea from a theoretical great thing in your head where you can do no wrong, the story's perfect, and actually take it out of your head and put it on a page, that is a very subconsciously anxiety-inducing process.
Well, what's funny is I've already written it.
Exactly. But
it's
you're
on
still,
the blog.
You're still procrastinating, and you're still taking a long time. And I am in a similar position in that I've, watched movies my whole life, worked a little bit in the industry, thought about telling stories my whole life. And the thing that I'm working on that we'll talk about in a little bit has taken me more years than I want to think about. But we're talking about you. See?
Yeah. So
see
the second thing,
I'm procrastinating. What? I said, see what I did right there? I'm procrastinating about talking about
you
my
are
thing
right now
by making you talk about your thing more.
The second part of that is kind of similar to the first in that, anyone who reads the blog and, I don't know if we really talked about it on the show, but at one point I've been diagnosed with breast cancer twice.
What?
I do not have cancer anymore. Well, this is the first I'm hearing about it. And
I can't take that. I can't say that joke. I was about to go off on that joke, but I can't do that. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Don't do that.
All right.
No, it's fine. You can always joke. So, and that's kind of what I'm working on. So when I was diagnosed the first time in 2009, I blogged through my experience, and, I wrote some kind of funny stories and had, good, I think, insights into what was going on with me. And over the years, people have asked me if I have compiled these into an easily readable format, and I have not. So that is the other thing I need to be working on. It needs to be put together. I need to put it together. So what's crazy is I've already have all this stuff, but I need to tie it all together.
Yeah.
I should be working on it right now.
You know what you could do? You should be working on it right now. You know what you could do? All you have to do is go into your blog, put in cancer, and you were saying this before, is the way people can read about your
I tag
cancer.
It all.
Exactly.
It's all tagged.
No, here's the thing. Exactly. Is you tag it all, and what you were telling me before we got on mic is the way people can read about your cancer odyssey is to go to your blog, put in the tag cancer, go to the first page or go to the last page,
right,
and then read them in reverse order. So yeah, you can't do it, but holy cow, that's something to do. So what you need to do, Sonia Mansfield,
yes, and
maybe this is a to-do list that I'm going to give you, not thinking through the full ramifications of what you might give me to do. But anyway, I'm going to give this to you anyway. Go on your blog, do what you did in reverse order, and just copy all of those posts off your blog, put them into a Word document, and see what you're looking at. That'll tell you how long all of that is. Is it long enough for a book? Do you need to write more? Do you have to cut 3/4 of it out because you wrote so much? You could do that.
I mean, there's a
right
lot
now.
there. It definitely will need editing, and it will definitely need, some of them will need fleshing out. There's, they're not perfect. It's not I'm going to copy and paste it and hand it to someone and say, here you go.
That's right.
There's a lot of stuff to be done.
That's right.
So it's more than just compiling. There's other things. It needs work for sure.
Yes.
Smith, what should you be working on right now?
Oh God. The reason I'm anxiety ridden about this is, and the reason I remember Craig Mazin's comment is because when he said it, sweet Christmas, it struck home so hard. What I should be working on is a book that I've been trying to write, or I've been writing in various stages in various ways for maybe the last 10 years. It's called Jet Jurgens. It started out as a silly series of stories that I was telling my sons before they went to bed, way back when one of them had just gotten out of the crib. He is now a freshman in high school. Harrison, it's a series of stories about, they were brothers that go into space and have adventures, and now it's a brother and a sister that go into space and have adventures. It is one of the reasons I'm so freaked out about it is because for all of my life I've wanted to tell stories, wanted to make movies, wanted to do this, and I've had some success, but I have not hit the sweet spot, the bullseye of the telling. A lot of the stories that we talk about on this show are adventure stories. They're larger than life genre stories. For me, my favorite kind of story is something that's fantastical and out there and kind of extravagant, but at the same time, it's not popcorn and disposable. There's something going on there, but it's also very exciting, which is
like
why...
Harry Potter.
Like Harry Potter, or I would say like the first Star Wars trilogy, is that melding of high adventure and, a little bit of the examination of what it's like to be human and try to go through this world, with lightsabers. That's the thing. And the idea of, telling these stories to the boys, writing them down, and then seeing what comes out of my head after I've had, 40 years of ambition to see is like, part of me is thinking, like when I'm writing along here, and I'm about halfway to 2/3 of the way through the story that I'm writing. And I've gone back and forth and done a million different permutations or whatever, and fallen into a lot of the pitfalls that a lot of writers do, where they rewrite the first chapter and over and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. This is why it's taken so long. No, I'm kind of putting up. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. You have all these hopes, you have all these ambitions, and you're doing this writing, and sometimes I read the stuff and I think, wow, this is exactly what I was hoping for. And when this gets out into the world, it's going to kick open every door. And I'm going to be famous, and you're practicing your Oscar speech and all that kind of stuff. Then I read it and I think, when I kick this out into the world, it's going to be like one of those people on American Idol that have no idea how awful they are.
Oh, that's not true.
They love music, they love singing, but for some reason, when they hear themselves sing, they just don't understand the thing that they love so much, that they're so close to, that they're dedicating their lives to. They just can't do it, and worse, they're a train wreck.
That's not you.
Maybe.
You're
we'll
not
see.
William Hung.
Hey, Walnut, I haven't asked you to read anything yet. And now here's the thing that's very dangerous, is because I've had friends of mine, close friends, that have tried to do creative things that when I saw them, I had no idea what to say to them.
Oh, yeah. I've had that too.
Because when you see something, it's, how do you tell somebody that loves something so much that the thing that they love is awful? And what's more, it's not just awful, it's so awful that trying to fix it is futile.
Can I tell you a funny story?
You can tell me a funny story.
An old boyfriend of mine wrote a book, and he had me read it, and it was so terrible.
What was terrible?
It was just so indulgent and boring,
God. Oh,
and like
God.
no one in the book behaves like an actual human being, and I could read it and tell that like the character that he thinks he is, it's just a bunch of characters that nobody acts that way. It was just all this wish fulfillment, like the characters that he thinks, like the man in the book that he thinks he is, that he's just not. So it was so clueless. And oh, it was just, and the book went on and on and on. It was so terrible.
God.
And he thought it was so good.
Oh, Sonia
He was just like, he was like, if I could just get someone to, publishing to read it, because I'm super talented. And oh God, it was so bad. Oh,
Oh, Sonia.
and I was in such an awkward position.
I'm speechless here because you have just played like a piano all my deepest fears. Like those are kind of things that, like, it's kind of one of those things like you do you make a sculpture or something, and in one light it looks great and in one light it looks just awful, and which one's the true light, which one's the true thing, and so I don't know, and I am petrified, but I have to take my medicine. I've been a critic, I've been a film critic, I've criticized books and all this, and we've talked for 18 episodes now on this show. We have taken shots about people trying to do creative things, but I got to be a man. I got to put my stuff out there and see what it's like. I'm confident that, my boys and I like it, and it scratches a lot of itches that I like. So in that instance, but I'll admit it. I have moments where I'm feeling pretty confident, thinking I see these big comic book movies or whatever, and thinking if I had $100 million, I could do that.
Right.
I can walk with the big boys if I had my chance. Well, this is my chance, and we're going to find out if I can walk with the big boys or if I'm William Hung.
You're not William Hung.
Well, here's the thing.
I have those same things. Like I like to read, I'll read like Amy Poehler's book or Mindy Kaling's book or Amy Schumer's book. And I was like, I have these stories. I have these essays. I have things that I've written that are on my blog that people seem to like. They comment, whatever. And I feel like I could do that too. But I could be totally clueless and wrong. And
see, I don't think you are, because you've been brave enough to put your stuff out there on a blog, so there is some kind of feedback. There is some kind of something. And I'll tell you, I think you and I talked about this earlier in the summer. There was an Onion headline: novelist has his whole world plotted out. And when I saw that, I can't tell you how petrified I was. Because one of the things I've become a connoisseur of procrastination doing this, and I have kind of figured out, which is why I've made a lot of progress in the last 6 months. I figured out all of the things that my subconscious does to stop me from writing. And I'll plot something out. I'll think about how the world works. I'll do all these world building things, which is something that a lot of fantasy and sci-fi writers talk a lot about, and no one else knows what the hell they're talking about. Anyway, yeah. So I actually, you know what? Now that I have no summing up thought for that portion other than, holy crap, I am scared. Having said all that,
it's scary to put something out in the world.
Yeah, I agree.
To be judged.
Yeah, I agree. Nevertheless, here's a segue. I am asking for alpha readers, not even beta readers. I'm gonna take a page from Andy Weir, who wrote The Martian, self-published The Martian, where he would put a chapter out every week or two on his blog, get feedback, and then when he was done with that process, he had a fantastic book that was directed into a fantastic movie by Ridley Scott.
Yes, it was A hilarious comedy.
It was a good movie. That's the thing that it gets kicked around because it won a Golden Globe.
I know.
But it really is a good movie. It's a lot of.
I kid.
It is. Well, that's you're not wrong, but nevertheless, let's remember it's a fantastic movie. It is the greatest sequel to Apollo 13 I've ever seen. So that's a long-winded way of saying I am looking for alpha readers. So if you want to go to the Jet Jurgens blog, it is. You know what? That's another thing. I'll say this. I'll say this in a second. One of the things that is really awful about this is I am becoming kind of a cliche before I even kick the book out of the door. Because when I started this, there was not this wave of young adult books that were out. It was like Harry Potter, and that was about it.
Right.
And now it's, I'm going to be the 10,000th person putting out a young adult series. I mean, cross your fingers. I hope this is a series. And I don't know. It's just, I'm just petrified.
Do you have a title?
Have I not said it?
Jet
Oh, sweet Jesus. Okay. Jet Jurgens and the Infinity Key is the name of the book. But
I have a question.
All right. Hit me.
Is the key to his heart?
No. Okay, good. I'm feeling pretty good because if I had said yes to that, that would have been a leading indicator that, oh my God, the worst case scenario is about to come true. No, it is not the key to his heart.
See, things are good.
That's right. So that's another thing. Now this is turning into. I mean, we're not going to do this segment all the time, people, so don't worry. But this is another thing that this is turning into a therapy session. So yeah, we're only going to do this every couple of months. Is you see these directors like Quentin Tarantino. Not to compare myself to Quentin Tarantino, but you see him stealing from all these movies, or like George Lucas with Star Wars. You see him stealing from all these influences.
They don't use the word stealing.
Right, they don't. Actually, I think Quentin Tarantino has used the word stealing. He says lesser filmmakers do homages, master filmmakers steal. They just take a lock, stock, and barrel. Anyway, and I have a feeling that people might read what I did and just go, oh, I see he's got a lot of influences. He's taken all these interesting things and he's putting together in this way. And look at that. Or it's just going to be, he took this from there, that from there, this from there, that from there. There's not one original idea in here. He's just stolen it all, and it's an embarrassment. So we'll see. Having said all that, you want to read it? I am looking for alpha readers, so go to the Jet Jurgens blog and sign up for an email list, and I will be emailing people soon when my plan is in the next month or two.
It's just at jetjurgens.com, right?
Jetjurgens.com, or you go to facebook.com/jetjurgens, JETTJERGENS. Or you go to Twitter, Jet Jurgens, and we have links in the show notes. Go to those places, sign up for the newsletter, sign up for the email list, and when I have it ready, I'll be posting chapter by chapter on the blog to get feedback and see what people are thinking and all that. So this is it. This is the Flying Walendas. Am I going to go out on actually Sonya's going to be here with me too in the next 6 months. Am I going to go out on the tightrope and make it across and it's going to be a great show, or am I going to get halfway out, start to wobble, grab for the cable, don't quite make it, pow, onto the street below? We will find out together. Sonia Mansfield, where do you want to direct people to pay attention to what you're doing?
You can go to thesoniashow.com. I take any and all feedback, people.
All right. So that's it.
Let me have it.
We have shared a tiny bit of our souls. I have shared a lot more fears than I was intending to. I'm kind of embarrassed now, but there it is.
Don't be embarrassed.
Thank you, Sonia. You're such a good friend. Even though I think I know who you're talking about, and
No,
if I ever heard
don't.
you, I am almost sure that I do. And if I heard you ever talk about, God, you know what it is? What we're gonna have to do is have you review my book on this show, and then we'll see. Then we'll know.
Oh no.
No, we can't do that. I don't have the courage for that. I'll admit it right now. All right. On to topic 3. Want more dorking out with Chris and Sonia? Well, there are a few simple things you can do. Share this program with a friend. We're assuming you have friends. It's easy. Just go to dorkingoutshow.com and you'll find our podcast links, our SoundCloud account, our YouTube links, our Facebook links, our Twitter links, our Tumblr links, and all our other links. And links. Grab one of those links and get to sharing. The more people listen, the more we make. Make all your friends envious with the cool podcasting choices you've made as a modern trendsetter. Our audience research shows the Dorking Out Show podcast audience is the smartest, most attractive, least prone to baseless flattery in the entire podcasting world. So get those links and get to sharing. Now, on with the show. All right. That brings us to topic 3. We have decided to bring Peter Brown from Assignment X out of the corner, and he can sit with us again and talk.
Thank you.
Sit at the grown-ups table, Peter.
That is my extremely condescending way of welcoming you back to the show. To talk about trailers, we're going to do a little mini trailer dump. We're talking about Guardians of the Galaxy. We're talking about The Arrival, and we're talking about Logan. What is being billed as the last appearance of Hugh Jackman as Javert? No, wait. As
Javert.
Wolverine. Logan. That's right.
Where'd you pull that from?
That's he was in Les Mis, right? Do I have that right?
Yes.
Oh my God, that's pulling deep, dude.
All right, I'm sorry. Anyway. And now that I think about it, I think Javert...
I thought that was his character from Swordfish. I misunderstood.
That is a great, awful movie, by the way. Anyway, point is, so I talked a lot of BS last week about, oh yeah, we should do maybe we should do like a Guardians of the Galaxy trailer's coming out. We should do a special bulletin or something. And then I watched the Guardians of the Galaxy teaser, and I have nothing to say because it truly is just a teaser. Sonia Mansfield, say something profound in a moment, because it sounds like Peter Brown has something to say. Peter Brown, why don't you start a discussion with Guardians of the Galaxy?
Okay, sure. I think you summed it up perfectly. It's not a trailer; it's a teaser. There's nothing here. They're back. Yay!
2 words: Baby Groot.
Well,
yeah,
sure.
There's a baby Groot. It's adorable.
But we knew that was going to happen.
You sound remarkably unimpressed, Peter. Is there something? Are you one of those nerds that doesn't like cute stuff?
No. I hey, puppies and kittens all the way.
No, but I mean, every time there's something cute in a like genre movie, it's like, that's. Let me ask you this.
No, not necessarily. Okay,
here's the activating question. What is your opinion on Ewoks?
Don't like them.
Well, all right. Case closed. All right.
I think they're cute. I'm really excited for Guardians of the Galaxy too. Guardians of the Galaxy's most likely my favorite of all the Marvel movies. So I'm pretty excited. And I like the teaser preview. I like the moment with Drax and Peter Quill. Like, I thought it was funny.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic, but it was kind of like, that's it. Other than that, we don't know plot. We don't know. We had a couple cool images. I mean, that's the thing.
The movie doesn't come out till next summer. They don't need to be showing us
exactly.
Yeah, you're
much.
right. You're right. You're right. That doesn't. But I guess maybe it's just like a refresher. Oh hey, they're still here. They're coming.
Yeah.
Remember these guys?
Yeah. I think.
I mean, in that respect, it works fine. But I wouldn't call it a full trailer. I would call it teaser trailer.
I agree, and that's the thing is, and I was thinking about this when I was watching this teaser. It was like, oh, this is like kind of old fashioned, because it used to be a teaser would be maybe a voiceover and maybe a title, and that's it. They would show you nothing. Or in a weird way, they would actually shoot stuff that was not in the movie. They, like a character talking directly to the audience or something. Then it seems like in recent years, what used to be teasers are now the first trailer, and then they make the second trailer, third trailer, and then kind of like the last trailer before a movie comes out. I'm looking at you, Batman versus Superman. Basically ruins the movie. It's kind of like they shift everything down one. They drop off the teaser that doesn't do anything. They replace it with the trailer. So then the last thing that comes out is like one trailer too many that tells too much story, too much surprises, too much whatever. So good on you, Marvel, for going back to what teasers are supposed to be.
You remember like the Rogue One trailer, Star Wars Rogue One, that was the teaser trailer for that was more like a regular trailer than it was a tease.
Exactly.
It had a lot of good meat in it.
Exactly. Which is funny because now that I'm thinking about it, with Star Wars trailers, maybe I'm wrong, but between Episode 7 trailers and Rogue One trailers, is they've teased and they've sketched stuff out, but they haven't really ruined anything. They haven't gone the way I think a lot of trailers have gone in recent years, which is just basically to kind of ruin the movie, or at least give
Terminator Genesis, yeah.
Oh my God, Terminator Genesis. Yeah.
Remember that? They ruined the whole big swerve in that one.
Yeah. And that was a bigger swerve. Yeah, Sonia and I talked about this. That was a bigger swerve than the Terminator 2 preview that ruined that one. Sonia, do you have any more thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy?
No. I'm pretty excited to see it. And I like that it doesn't give away too much.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hate it. It is what it is. I've called it a teaser.
I feel teased.
I feel teased, exactly. I feel a little tickle.
Speaking of tickles, The Arrival is coming.
I'm so excited for The Arrival. This is probably the movie other than Rogue One that I'm most excited about.
Close Encounters of the 2016.
Close Encounters? This is not Close Encounters. I don't understand why no one has seen this for what it is. This is a remake of Independence Day. This is a reboot.
It's the thinking man's Independence Day.
It is. Like, they have that shot. Okay, for anybody that doesn't know what we're talking about, Amy Adams plays a linguist who gets grabbed by the army when aliens come, and she has to figure out their language. But these aliens are bringing these massive, massive, massive ships to Earth, and they're placing them strategically throughout the globe, and everybody's freaking out, and the military is going to do something. It's like they took the first half of Independence Day and then decided to write a completely different movie for the second half, I think.
It's the Independence Day we should have gotten. The Independence sequel we should have gotten.
That's it. Oh, that is interesting. So
I think it just looks really, really great. I think it looks really interesting. I'm reading like advanced reviews have been really positive. I think it has like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes right now.
Wow. How many? Well, yeah, while you talk about what you're looking
I'll go
forward
look.
to.
You guys talk.
All right. I'm really liking it. I really have. It's one of those things where I think until about a month and a half ago, I'm getting old because I used to know movies that were coming out like 2 years, 3 years in advance, and now with a movie like The Arrival popping out, I was shocked that a movie that looks this good and looks this slick is coming out, and I had no idea about it. But that's my personal journey. Peter, what are you excited about for The Arrival?
I love science fiction flicks, so I'm pretty excited in that regard. I like Close Encounters, so that was pretty good. If it's a kind of a mix of that and, like you said, Independence Day, should be all right. We'll see how it goes, but I'm not against it, that's for sure.
It's got 47 reviews, and it's 100%.
Good God, really?
Yep.
That is nuts. I'm
excited.
That is a lot of reviews to have 100%.
Da na 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 na.
Wow. All right. Cool. Excited. So, which brings us to a trailer that I love for a movie that I could not care less about.
That's really funny because anyway, go ahead.
So I was gonna say that's Logan. It is Hugh Jackman's last appearance.
Maybe.
So they say.
Wait. What do you know that we don't know?
Oh, you haven't been keeping up with this?
No.
Oh, it's he's on again, off again with it. He's been on that way for the last year. He's like, I'm done with it. This is my last one. Maybe it's not. This is my last one. Maybe it's not. This is my last one. Maybe it's not. So he's a little wishy-washy about whether this is going to be his actually last appearance as Wolverine.
Wow. Because I thought this didn't they just say that this was Patrick Stewart's last appearance as somebody?
Yeah, but they said that after The Last Stand or whatever it was.
All right. Yeah, no, that's true.
And he's been in how many more since then?
That's true.
4 now?
That's true.
So what timeline is this movie set in? This X-Men has like so many timelines.
Well, I don't know.
I can kind of answer that.
Why don't you answer it?
Okay, so it takes place in the after apocalypse universe, sort of. So
Sort of.
Yeah, they say that because apparently this takes place a few years after Wolverine's appearance in Days of Future Past, where they showed like a future Wolverine, and then he gathered around the X-Men, and the X-Men sent him back in time, right? And then he did all that with them and saved them from a dark future. And then they destroyed it all in Apocalypse, everything they did in that movie. So this takes place after Apocalypse in that universe, after the timeline's been reset. It gets really confusing. So it gets really confusing, but it's kind of in that same universe, but maybe not. It might be in its completely own X-Men universe.
Right.
So it might be just kind of its own kind of story, not even attached to anything else.
But I'm wondering, like, do I need to see Apocalypse to see this movie?
No.
Because don't do that.
I mean, I'll probably watch Apocalypse anyway.
You don't have to see. You don't have to see it. You don't have to see any of the movies to see this.
Yeah, don't do that. You don't.
I mean, it kind of helps.
No,
it helps. But
don't
it
go see Apocalypse. Don't see Apocalypse in any way, shape, or form.
Thanks for the warning.
Sorry, that movie was just so boring. My God, it was boring. And sorry, I'm about to go off on a tiny little rant. Have you ever seen so many people murdered on screen and then just kind of shrugged off by the main characters? Because I can't remember. I think Apocalypse might be the most murderous movie ever to have come out. Other than like Independence Day. But like more humans are killed in that movie that never get remarked on, and then Charles and Magneto are still buddies and whatever, and see you around. And no, that would be like finding out that your best friend from growing up was Hitler, but then after World War II, you guys are like still cool. It's like, hey, like you're walking around the rubble of Berlin. It's like, well, I'll see you around, Adolf. See you around, Peter. No, it's just weird.
It's as if your best friend was turned into a Russian assassin, and he killed tons of people, including Tony Stark's parents. And then you're just like, yeah, he's still my friend.
See, that's true, and that is a big problem I had. But I think they kind of played that off as almost like a character defect in Captain America or whatever.
I guess I'm fine with it because I have lots of friends who murder people, and I'm like, that's cool. Like that's what they're into.
Right. That's the other thing is. There's a difference between the Winter Soldier who killed maybe 200 people, and assassinated, and he's like a spy. He's like James Bond for the Soviets. Magneto killed millions, millions and millions and millions of people. Sorry.
No, you're right, and you know what? There's actually a lot of similarities in the comics. They kind of are always kind of stay kind of buddies, even despite all of his terribleness that he does, and he continues to like waver back and forth, and he's a good guy sometimes, and he's a bad guy sometimes, a good guy back, he's back and forth a lot, and it's still always Charles is always like, he's still my friend. There's
still good in him. I don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a war criminal. Maybe visit him in prison. You guys can play chess at what's
in a plastic prison.
Yeah, you guys can play chess in a plastic prison wherever they sent Rudolf Hess, wherever he spent 40 years. Send him there. So.
Wasn't that in the second movie or whatever?
Actually,
right?
You know what? It might have been. All right, so...
So, Smith, you really like the preview, but you don't want to see the movie.
Not really. Well, see, here's the thing. Anybody that wants to use Johnny Cash, the way that they use Johnny Cash is just... Mwah! I just love that. Very spared down, very turned down, very... almost
emotional.
Like... Well, yeah, and I've heard what I've heard is that this is kind of like a reaction to the bombast of a lot of comic book movies. This is almost like an indie comic book movie where it's...
Yeah, it doesn't look like any other X-Men movie, that's for sure.
Yeah, it looks more like, and they said, I've read that people are comparing the preview more to Hell and High Water than to an X-Men movie, and that's true. And if only Logan could be good as Hell and High Water. My problem is, I don't care about the X-Men series anymore.
Mm.
It's after Apocalypse. It's like, and I think we've talked about this before, is once you have roughly an equal amount of good and bad movies in a series, it really detracts. It really, messes with the mojo of how much I care about that series and the new movie to come out of it. So, yeah.
What do you think, Peter? Are you excited to see it?
So yeah, you know what? This is my favorite trailer of the three for sure. There's a lot here that is going on. First off, this is supposed to be an R-rated movie, which I'm super excited about because Wolverine should have always been an R-rated movie because it's just in the nature of the way the character is supposed to be. He's supposed to be very, very violent, very, very brutal. And if we've learned anything in this podcast, I enjoy violence apparently. So
you're a monster.
I know. But so there's this is the most Old Man Logan movie that's not named Old Man Logan ever. So there's this whole comic book called Old Man Logan that deals with a very old Wolverine. He's aged. His healing factor started to break down. He's no longer the supremely brutal and fast and tough guy that he used to be. Now he's this aging guy who gets injured very easily, and he still kind of can heal, but it takes a significant amount of time, and his body leaves scars now on his body whenever he gets injured. And so that's why you see, like in the trailer, he's all scarred up and he's like walking and he's got like some maybe paralysis or something going on. And so it's taken from that. However, Fox doesn't have the rights to Old Man Logan. It's clearly in Disney's hands, and so they can't call it that. So they're calling it just Logan. And so, but for all intents, it's Old Man Logan. There's
wait. Yeah. I'm sorry to derail you here for a second. I thought Fox had the rights to any X-Men comic.
Yeah, but that was created after that deal was made.
So they did not have. So Fox does not have any rights to any X-Men comic that was published after whenever they set up the X-Men. So after 1999, I guess, roughly.
Right. So they only have the number of characters up until that point, and then they can't use like any of the ones they've created. And they've created quite a few. So that's why you see like
interesting
that crazy mutant in Deadpool or whatever, right?
Okay.
That nobody's ever heard of. And so you got Colossus and oh God, I'm blanking on her name, but that one,
the
one with the short hair.
That's right, the atomic super atomic fire girl, whatever.
Right.
And I know that is not what her name is. So just save your tweets, save your emails.
Drawing a blank. Sorry.
Which is awful because it's a funny joke in the movie. What her name is and how badass it is, but anyway. All right.
So anyway, so then there's also this the little girl in there, and that's very very prominent in the trailer. Is everybody believes it's this girl named X-23, which is a clone of Wolverine that was part of the project to kind of recreate how Wolverine came about. So they dropped him in like adamantium, which is this super hard metal, and made him have this skeleton, and then he became this guy who heals and all this stuff, right? So they've been trying to recreate that mutant, and they finally did with this little girl. And so she kind of has the claws. She has the similar claws. She has a healing factor. She has all the same things. And so there's the idea that if Hugh Jackman does decide to quit being the character, they can bring on another actress, and then she could kind of presumably take over for that.
But isn't this far, far, far in the future? Like, she could take over, but she'd be telling X-Men stories from, like, 2075.
Yeah. Well, as you've seen, the time is no issue in these movies.
No, time is a huge issue in these movies. It's
Well,
a
not
massive issue. When is the
They could
last...
just like send somebody back in time and just be like, "Oh, I'm here to save the day."
No, I guess what I should say is time's a big problem in these movies, because I don't think we've had a X-Men movie set in contemporary times since The Last Stand. Is that the last movie that was set in present day?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have anything else we want to say about these three movies?
Negasonic Teenage Warhead.
That's the one. Sonia Mansfield.
Yes.
What's going to be the Rotten Tomato score for Guardians of the Galaxy 2?
I'm going to say 80%.
All right. Peter Brown.
Very similar. I'm going to say 83.
I'm going to say 87. Logan. What is the Rotten Tomato score of Logan?
75.
I think this one gets a lot of critical acclaim because it's different than all the other ones, and I'm going to say 87.
I am going to go in a different direction. I'm going to say 51.
Dang.
It's gonna be like, oh, we had a
What
lot
a
of hopes.
hater.
It looked good. No, they tried something different and it didn't work. Blah blah. Also, because it's an X-Men movie, the percentages are on my side.
You got a point there.
All
That's
right.
for sure.
So The Arrival. What's The Arrival's Rotten Tomato score gonna be? I know it's 100 right now. When the day after it comes out, what's its score gonna be? Sonia Mansfield.
I say it drops down to 95.
All right.
I'm gonna go 87 again.
All right. I'm going to go with 94. Because once a movie gets over 100 or 200 reviews, even if it's the greatest movie since sliced bread, it usually falls below 95. I think Toy Story 3 is one of the very few that was able to stay in the mid to high 90s after being reviewed that many times. So, you heard it here first. You're probably going to forget about it, but that's fine because we're just glad you listened this week. On to our favorite headlines. Thank you for joining us, Peter Brown.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Now get out! So that brings us to our favorite headlines of the week. There is a lot of stuff out there. You know what, Sonia? I'm going to blast through all of our headlines, all of our potentials, and then we're just going to pick out two to talk about because I love all of them. And everybody should go and sign up for the newsletter, which used to be sent out by a monkey that quit a couple weeks in, which is why you haven't seen a newsletter for a while now. Now, that might seem like a long explanation for why we haven't sent out a newsletter, but I swear every word of it is true. Point is, sign up for the newsletter, and I'm going to send all these headlines to you very shortly because I love them all.
They're good ones.
They're good ones. First, story for Indiana Jones will be George Lucas free. Danny Glover cast as Lando in the new Han Solo movie.
Yahoo!
A Willy Wonka prequel might happen. Joss Whedon wants to make a Star Wars movie, and Godzilla 2 gets a director. So which two do you think Sonia and I are going to talk about in the show? Sonia Mansfield, what's your favorite headline?
I'm going to go with the Willy Wonka prequel might happen.
All right.
The reason I'm picking that one is because usually I'm kind of fine with prequels and remakes and reboots. I think this is a terrible idea.
Really?
It is a terrible idea. This is like, we don't need a prequel of Willy Wonka. We don't need to know like what his childhood was. Like, he's fine just the way he is. Like, it'll just take the mystery out of him.
Yeah. Explained characters, explained heroes, and explained villains always become less and less interesting. However, I thought I read somewhere that this was not going to be a origin story. That this is going to be Willy Wonka just having an adventure.
But I'm still not okay with it. Okay. Because I think it's still just going to explain why he is the way he is.
Right. Second question.
Yes.
There were, correct my math, but there were 2 Willy Wonka stories written by Roald Dahl, right?
I believe that's correct. I think there's, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And then I think there was one that was like Charlie and the Glass Elevator.
Right.
Is that right? Okay.
Well, that's what I think. But I thought Charlie and the Glass Elevator or Willy Wonka and the Glass Elevator, you can tell the depth of research we do before we do the show. I thought that one happened before Willy Wonka or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
No, I don't think so.
Oh.
I think it happens right after.
Well, then, never mind. Because I was going to say they have, because that's the thing is, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory has been made like 2.5 times.
Right.
Into a movie. And
what's the halftime?
I don't know. It's somewhere in there. I think there was a Community episode or something. It's out there somewhere. Then but the Glass Elevator has never been made into a movie.
Right. So why not just do that one?
I don't know. I thought for some reason that's what they were going to use that's what they were going to pull the information from.
I don't think so.
All right. So, it's funny. I got to say, between Indiana Jones and 2 Star Wars movie headlines, it's kind of amazing that neither one of us are picking any of the Star Wars or Indiana Jones, any of the Lucasfilm related stuff. We're not picking it because my favorite headline kind of is Godzilla 2 gets a director.
Oh. So why is this your pick?
Well, this is my pick because a couple weeks ago, I went to see Shin Godzilla, the new relaunch of Godzilla, Japanese Godzilla series. Godzilla, it's kind of a strange and, for as many Godzilla movies as Japan has made, it's kind of a weird thing in that they've never done a hard Casino Royale style reboot. What they've done is they've made the first Godzilla movie, made a bunch of movies, then in 1985 they made a sequel to just the first one that ignored all the others. So it's kind of like a Superman Returns type situation. Right. Then they made a bunch more movies, killed them off a couple times, rebooted, started over. And Godzilla in the Japanese movies has, grown from 100 feet to 500 feet, even though it's supposed to be the same series. It's crazy. Anyway, went to go see Shin Godzilla. And while friend of the podcast, Jeff Bond, really enjoyed this movie, my God, was it boring.
Oh, that's so disappointing.
Crushingly boring. And Godzilla was cool, but all of the people parts, even though it seemed like they were trying to do some weird, interesting satire of government bureaucracy, and I've heard it compared to kind of like a Stanley Kubrick take on Godzilla, like a Doctor Strangelove level of absurdity. And maybe for people in Japan that know the culture and know the government, it's this brilliant satire. But for somebody totally out of it, it's just. And I think I might have said this on a previous podcast. Maybe we were just talking about it. It's like if they made an episode, if they made a West Wing series in Japan, and then this was the episode where Godzilla shows up. It was just 90% walking down halls, talking fast.
I would watch that show.
You think you would watch that show.
I really would.
Which brings me all back to this point. I'm not sure it's possible to make a good Godzilla movie. Every single
I disagree.
Godzilla. Here's the thing. Every single Godzilla movie, even Gareth Edwards, 2014. God, has it already been that long? 2014 Godzilla movie. It's enjoyable. I watch the monsters fight, but every single Godzilla movies, once Godzilla's not on the screen, just kill me now, skip forward to the next part. Every single one. And I'm wondering if it's been in that way so Godzilla movies are either, it's fine, I really like the Godzilla part, or they're just train wrecks. Like right. Godzilla versus the Smog Monster or Son of Godzilla or whatever, where it's just, this is awful from start to... Even the parts with Godzilla suck. This movie is awful. I don't know. And I think...
I really liked the first Godzilla.
I did too.
I saw it in the theater. Well, it was a while ago. God, it must have been 10 years ago. And I hadn't seen it in a really long time. And I forgot, it's a really dark movie. That's true.
Okay,
but I did really like it.
Let me step back from my premise. Everything, because that's the thing, is the first Godzilla movie is this force of nature comes to Japan and just wreaks havoc. And there's nothing you can do about it. And because it's almost like karma being visited on Japan or on humanity in a larger sense. It's, our sins are coming back to haunt us. So there's that story. But everything else, the story of this monster coming and just laying waste and what that means for us, I mean, that's an interesting story. But every other story is boiled down to, oh, there's Godzilla. Oh, there's another monster. I wonder when they're going to fight. Oh, they're going to fight. Look at them fight. It's never like they've rolled out, there's been 25 Godzilla movies? It's never like they've rolled out the tanks. All right, open fire. And then they kill Godzilla. It's always either the jets or the helicopters or the tanks or the artillery. Oh, they're all ineffective. They've all got the scene where the commander of the, Japanese army turns to somebody, usually some weird hipster journalist or something in these movies for some reason, and says, oh, it's ineffective. And then they call the prime minister, oh, our attack is ineffective. We don't know what to do. He's still on the way to Tokyo. And then the prime minister kind of slumps and shakes his head, which is in Shin Godzilla 4 times, I think. Anyway.
So you don't think a cool new director is going to save Godzilla?
Well, no. And here's the problem, is I don't think you can do anything dramatically. It's on a level of spectacle. There are few things in film more interesting than Godzilla. Having a character and an entity like Godzilla looming over the landscape and just destroying everything humans have made is an unbelievably compelling thing to see on screen. It's so compelling, I think, that it has sustained a series for more than 50 years, for upwards of 25 or 30 movies, and not one of them is dramatically interesting. Not one of them tells a really compelling story from A to B to C to start to finish.
So this new movie is written by the same guys that did Krampus.
Yes.
Did you see Krampus?
I did not. Could be
I
great.
read good stuff about it.
That's what I heard.
And it's being directed by the director of Krampus, also one of the writers.
Yeah.
I'm like, it could be an interesting take.
Could be, but that's the thing, is it's a take. And that's the thing about Shin Godzilla is one of the things that's interesting about what the Japanese did with Godzilla is they're a lot less jerking and throwing around the camera than American directors seem to be. They're content to just stick the camera down and watch Godzilla walk towards the camera for 30 seconds. going through buildings and stuff. And it's an unbelievably nightmarish thing. And Shin Godzilla is the first Godzilla movie I think I can remember that looks completely realistic. Completely real. And the images of Godzilla stalking a landscape are really creepy. And that's the thing is Godzilla movies in moments are some of the most compelling things to watch. But as films all together, I don't think I've seen one that's any good. And I'm not sure we're going to get into this, or we got into this earlier with our discussions of, what we're trying to do with our own books.
Right.
Is I don't know. I'm a big believer in theoretically any story can be told. You can find an interesting way to tell any story you can think of. And if you take it from the right angle, you can be successful. But Godzilla's pushing me to the limit because I'm not sure I can imagine an interesting Godzilla story out there. So,
well,
that's right.
I'm going to keep my fingers crossed for them.
I'm going to keep my fingers crossed too.
Godzilla good luck.
I do too. That's the thing is I went after watching Shin Godzilla. I came home and because I bought Gareth Edwards' 2014 Godzilla and I watched chunks of it. And what did I do? I watched Bryan Cranston die, and then I said, that's enough of this. Skip. Fight in Hawaii, which was really creepy and crazy. Skip. There's San Francisco being destroyed, and it's the fight is just nightmarish, and it's really cool. As the final fight, the final sequence in Gareth Edwards' Godzilla is really fantastic. But overall, as a movie, kind of a snoozer.
Well, I think there's some good stories for Godzilla out there. And what if it was set in the past and he was out in the wilderness and like somebody kidnaps his son and then he fights a bear? I mean, Godzilla could win an Oscar for that.
No.
No?
Although that would no. In fact,
what if Godzilla becomes a bad mom?
No.
Because
then we would have some of the other monsters out in front of her house as she's throwing some lavish drunk party peeing. I think we've had this. This discussion feels very familiar. No. So point is, I'm going to make an executive decision for pop culture.
What if Godzilla joined the Avengers?
No. But don't get me into my theory that a great Incredible Hulk movie is also not possible. I don't have time to get into that right now.
Okay.
We got to get to work. Do you have anything you want to say to our lovely audience at home?
I'll just say goodbye.
Bye! The Dorking Out Show is on Twitter at Dorking Out Show, where you can find Chris at Jet Jurgens and Sonia at The Sonia Show. You can read about Sonia's random adventures at thesoniashow.com and track the slow and creeping progress of Chris's novel and his other hijinks at jetjurgens.com. You can find out more about The Dorking Out Show at dorkingoutshow.com. While you're over there, you can support us by giving us a review on iTunes. We have a handy-dandy iTunes link to whisk you right back to 2007, where you can leave your review and 5-star rating in iTunes. We'd do it for your podcast. Want to dork out even more? Well, you can sign up for our newsletter, where you'll get all the headlines we use as fuel for the show. That's it for this week. Thanks for listening.